Hey everyone, checking in on the MJ names. So we had a very bearish start to the day across the board, and this was the kind of morning where US and Canadian MJ names were absolutely smashed. It was probably the most bearish morning that I've seen in recent memory. The reason for it is pretty much Cron getting a downgrade. So Cron earnings came out, got the downgrade. I'm sure that they went bearish yesterday, put out the downgrade today. And we broke a bunch of key support levels. So the red flag already came on Cron's daily chart. We got the red flag breaking multiple support levels. 2067 was a red flag. 2036 was the red flag. We had a little bit of a bounce for the hopeful bulls heading into earnings. Inside bar yesterday and this morning, as soon as 1930 breaks and we break the inside bar bearish, we just get steamrolled by the bears on the highest daily volume that we've seen in a couple weeks. We broke the last support of 1872. And I call that the last support just because there's nothing nearby it. After 1872, the next clear daily support level is 1409. That doesn't mean there's no support until 1409, but it means there are little supports until 1409. So the hourly oversold bounce did get a little bit of follow through, and we're looking at resistance of 1846 into tomorrow. That was the high of the bounce. So 1846 to 1771 is the range for tomorrow. Break 1771 and we have further pullback coming. Keeping in mind that the daily RSI right now is not oversold. The 4-hour RSI, if we get another leg down, it will be oversold. And the hourly RSI also cooled off on that afternoon bounce attempt. So I personally played this Cron oversold bounce and ended up with a nice entry. And my decision on when to enter Cron was specifically based on the S&P 500. And the S&P 500, if you've been watching the daily videos where we cover the markets, has been playing out into our most likely scenario of a 4-hour equilibrium for the last 2 or 3 days. So we were dumping in the S&P 500 this morning, straight towards support, and we were very oversold on the 5-minute time frame and getting oversold on the 15-minute as we headed to this key support level. So knowing that this SPY support was sitting there, knowing the 5-minute RSI for SPY, knowing that Cron was really beat up and we just broke 18 psychological and saw a volume climax on those stops triggering, I entered a first position at 1778 on Cron with the intention of entering a second position if we were to continue dropping down perhaps into the 1740s. So I only ended up entering that one position. I sold half of that position on the initial move up, just under $18, and then I sold the second half on this move up. I didn't play it out and hold on for that little bit of extra follow through. I took all my profit knowing it's just an oversold bounce, knowing the bears have all the momentum. I wanted to lock in that day maker, playing against the trend, just playing oversold bounces, which I like to do. So other than that now, we're looking for a lower high to be set on Cron. And the bulls have to change this hourly trend. If we change the hourly trend with a little higher low of $18 and then a bull break tomorrow of 1846 during regular trading, the open's not enough because we can easily open and then sell off right from it. We have to see the breaks occur with real volume behind them during regular trading hours. But if we change the hourly trend, we zoom out to the daily and we know that anything under 2110 is just a daily lower high. So we can be pretty sure that even with a 15% bounce, we're still going to look for a daily lower high to form. So again, sentiment is shifting out of these major Canadian MJ names, and we have a lack of support on the weekly time frame for Cron. We're pretty much just looking for monthly consolidation and looking for a monthly higher low to form after a massive bull move, and we're going to look for that to form in the mid-teens. Mid to upper teens, we'll say. Depends on what the S&P 500 does as well. Look at the monthly 12-period exponential moving average. Just test after test, tons of support holds. That's way down there, but if we do keep consolidating a couple of months, we will set our sights on that. So bears in full control of Cron. CGC got follow through for the bears as well. Again, we got the red flag for CGC days ago. The first red flag was the inability to break support, or resistance, I should say, and get follow through. We then saw the daily inside bar break bearish. We took out support of 44.97. That was the level for me. As soon as we broke 44.97, sentiment changes. So on the bull break, which failed, we broke one resistance level and left with an upper wick. Here on the bear break, we broke one level, we broke 2 levels, and now we've broken 3 levels. Now it's just 41.68 nearby. And if 41.68 breaks, look at the weekly time frame. What's below 41.68? Nothing clearly established. CGC, and again, if you've been watching the S&P 500 videos, we've been talking about the monthly equilibrium as the potential setup. CGC is giving us a monthly equilibrium if we break 41.68. All-time high, low of the 50% dump, lower high is 51.81, and we will be looking for a higher low in the upper to mid $30 range if we break 41.68. So monthly tightening range, perhaps giving us a little bit of a precursor of what to look for on the S&P 500. If this is what the S&P 500 is going to do, CGC is pretty much one step ahead, one candlestick ahead, as SPY is forming this candlestick on the month right now, and CGC is about to test some very key support. So hourly oversold bounce today, we have the low of the day, high of the bounce, 43.20. If we change the hourly trend for the bulls, we zoom out to the daily and we look for a lower high to form compared to 48.60. So again, we could see a massive bounce of over 10% and still be forming a daily downtrend. So the bears have complete control. It's just all about 41.68 support and whether or not that level can hold, because that's going to dictate what to expect as we head into the summer months. APHA, we had the red flag yesterday, highlighted the potential of the bear flag bounce. Bear flag confirmed. 915 support broke. So I like the weekly time frame for clarity on APHA now, because we have the high, low, lower high. It's actually a clear bear break on the weekly as well. It was a tightening range. 915 breaking is a clear bear break. We haven't gotten a ton of follow through from that bear break, only 8 cents right now. But after 9 psychological, we're looking down at 808 as the next support level. So APHA, you can see 915 breaking. Here's 890. 890 and 808 are the next two clear levels. As far as the hourly RSI levels, we got to oversold and bounced. So again, just like everybody else, we have the low of the day, high of the bounce. If we change the hourly trend tomorrow, we zoom out to the daily and we look for a lower high compared to 983. If we break these hourly equilibriums bearish, then obviously further downside is coming and we'll be right back to oversold conditions, and we'll watch what the 4-hour RSI levels are as well. ACB gave us the red flag on the bounce yesterday. Lack of follow through, lack of confirmation. Inside bar broke bearish at 907 and we broke below 875, so we're dropping to a lower low. The next supports are 925, actually I take that back, 855, and then a gap fill to 825. Those are the next two support levels. We are still looking for a daily higher low to form, but we need a very clear trend change to do it. And we had an attempt at a trend change that failed. We had a significant bounce, but no higher low and higher high. At this point, we have the low of the dump. High of the bounce is 888. And if we change the hourly trend, we zoom out to the daily and look for a lower high compared to 945. And TLRY, bear break below 64.45. Next support level, 64.06. That broke as well. TLRY is in an area with very little support. I'm looking at $59 as the next support level, as the lower high and lower low pattern on the weekly played out, keeping the downtrend intact. Equilibrium, bear break, and further weakness. That bear break occurred all the way back at 75.25, and at this point, a very healthy 15% drop from there. I shouldn't say healthy for the bears. A very nice 15% drop for the bears. So on those 5 names, major Canadian MJ, we can distinguish them as their own little category, a little subsector inside the MJ sector. They're weak. And we are seeing funds buying dips. The MJ space, the US MJ space, had so much volatility today. Dumps across the board first thing this morning. 5 to 10% dumps. We saw names dump 10% and bounce 10% into the end of the day. We had plenty of 7% dumps to 5% bounces. The bottom line is the dip buying on the US MJ space was way more notable than on the Canadian MJ space. And there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, this banking discussion, if you're watching it, you know, we're in we have a common bond now of sitting through this terrible, nauseating politics. They still haven't moved it forward. They're still talking about it while I'm talking right now. Anyways, that's one little dangling carrot. The other reason is I think money is shifting towards the USMJ names. And it's also very thinly traded compared to Canadian names. If I see $1 million of buying on the Canadian names that we just looked at, we're not going to see it show up as significant on the hourly time frame. Whereas if you buy $1 million within an hour or two on one of these USMJ names, you're going to run the price 5% plus. So a little bit of dollar volume, thinly traded, goes a long way, and that's really showing itself on these USMJ names, which you'll see as we get to the end of this video, just how significant those dip buying events were today. So overall, weakness in the major MJ names, daily downtrends very clear. Any bounces, we're looking for daily lower highs, potential for CGC monthly equilibrium, which would mean a tightening range into probably Q3, Q4 of 2019 before we would get a monthly pattern breaking, if that is indeed what we are seeing here. And of course, Kron now has a lot of that momentum sucked out of it. And pretty much it almost was like the market saying, yeah, these valuations, we need to double think those again after the earnings came out for Kron. Downgrades, just sucking the fun out of the sector for the Canadian LPs. But there's great dip buying opportunities as far as oversold bounces go. We'll still be playing those oversold bounces. Let's now move on to the tier 2 names. So OGI got further pullback today as well. Couldn't break resistance of 925. It was a double top, and now it's a triple top. 925, clear resistance, and we did lose the daily uptrend as far as the higher lows are concerned. So the weekly chart is now consolidating. The weekly chart, anything above 587 is a higher low, so bulls have tons of space to work with. We're going to see, can the bulls form a healthy bull flag on the weekly time frame? If that's the case, we have to see this bear break lead straight into a bounce. Because when we see breaks of support and trend changes with no follow through, we zoom out and look for flags. And this is a possible weekly bull flag if we don't get much follow through below 864. Bulls really need to just turn around and break 925, and that would be a statement for the probability of that weekly bull flag. TRST is a very strong bull. This is one of the strongest Canadian MJ names out of the major players, and the dip buying held the low of yesterday. Well, actually, we broke it by 2 pennies, but we'll call that a double bottom. Broke the high of yesterday and then closed at the high of the day. This TRST action was on par with the V-shaped dip buying we saw on these USMJ names. Just a quick sneak peek. Look at TRUL on the hourly time frame at the end of the day today. Look at TRST. Very similar. So I'm not seeing that on most Canadian MJ names, but we are seeing it here with a close at the high of the day on big bull volume, and we're going to be looking to test 1348, and then the next resistance level is 14 and 1410. We're looking up at the all-time high on TRST after very healthy daily consolidation. Remember, we lost the 4-hour uptrend, and what did we see? No follow-through. We broke support of 1268 by 16 cents, and then we bounced. And that's when you zoom out and look for a flag, and that's a bull flag on the daily, trying to go for confirmation tomorrow. Hexo did not see dip buying by the bulls. We have our daily lower high very quickly being set. And we saw weakness in Hexo this morning before anybody else really, as far as standing out. I mean, this 5-minute dump this morning, after a strong start, the first candlestick, and just a complete fake out, the red flag would be, hitting the new low of the day, the second candlestick in the day, but then it just dumped. So we have a daily lower high being set now, high of 970, low of 815, lower high of 922, and the bulls have to hold 815. If we look at it on the 4-hour time frame, it's a little bit more condensed or more clear. High, low, lower high, have to hold the higher low to try and see this range tighten up. So out of the tier 2 names, TRST is clear lead bull, not even a question. OGI is healthy on the weekly with its consolidation at this point, and we've got Hexo tightening up on the 4-hour time frame. VFF consolidation continues. So at this point, from the all-time high in 4 days, we have pulled back 30%. So unfortunately, a lot of people, this is new in terms of seeing how quickly gains can evaporate after such strong runs, but you'll get used to it. It'll be a learning lesson because, we've been able to say on the way up, we don't know when the top's going to be hit, but when that top is hit, we are going to pull back 30% very quickly from the all-time high. So losing the daily uptrend was the red flag. For those with experience who look at this weekly chart, for traders with experience who look at this weekly chart and say, we are overextended, we know weekly consolidation is due, the risk to reward for bullish entries up here certainly is not any good, but if we look at a loss of the daily uptrend as the signal that weekly consolidation is underway, that means exiting at 2034 or going short at 2034. And at this point, that saves 17%, 15 to 17% of further pullback where we can reload cheaper if we're looking long term, or 15% gain for a bear. So I've been trying to play some of these bounces on VFF because they have been good bounces, but I just haven't got the comfortability with it yet. And it's because it's still less liquid than the major players. I traded CGC like an ATM machine in 2018. That was my moneymaker. I think I had 400% higher profit on CGC than my number 2 ticker of the year on 2019 or 2018. 2019 is now Cron for me. I've been trading Cron a lot more actively. There's been more volatility. I've gotten comfortable with how it trades. You get comfortable with individual names. And I don't have my comfortability with VFF yet because I have to use smaller position sizes and because it just trades a little bit differently. The bid and the ask spread are not as tight on the US side of things. So I was trying to play this bounce today on VFF, and I had my buy order. Let's go to the US side of things just so I can get my prices right. But I just was placing some bids and looking for entries on those bids, and I missed filling it by pennies. And you know what? I moved it. That's what happened. So that's my mistake. I need to go back and analyze it. So that's something that I'm going to learn from after I'm done this video, because I would have gotten filled at 1261. My bid was at 1261, and that obviously would have been a great fill for this bounce to play out. And I moved it. And I believe it was because everybody else started bouncing. I was in my Cron bounce, and VFF had not started bouncing yet. So I just pulled that bid and wanted to focus on Cron. But I need to go back and double check and look at the setup as to why I pulled that bid, because it missed a nice solid bounce. But anyways, for VFF on the hourly time frame, we have to change the trend for our daily higher low to be established. And at this point, the bounce is looking to just form an hourly lower high compared to 1468. So we have the low of, this is the US side of things. Let's go back to Canada. So we have the low of 1676. Anything under 1964 is just a lower high. And the goal for the bulls is a daily inside bar tomorrow, because that means we put a stop to the pullback and we establish support and we try and hold 1676, the low of today. So if we can change the hourly trend, the daily support level will be set, keeping in mind that we're just looking for a daily lower high to be set. When you go from higher lows and higher highs, you lose the higher low pattern, you look for a lower high on that initial bounce. So keep in mind, it's been the 4-hour RSI and the hourly RSI, which is why I was beginning to scale into this position for VFF. But the bounce from yesterday saw a nice little 3-4% of follow through first thing before the sector weakness caught up with it. But I am still interested in this name because of the 30% pullback in 4 days. I do believe that we will see solid bounces like we just saw. I mean, even though this was a small bounce, in the end, we went from 1676 to 1795. That's well over 5%. So the bounces are there if you're comfortable with oversold bounces. Otherwise, if you're playing this sector bearish, which again, traders should be looking bearish on all these major LPs for lower highs, but rather than looking to play oversold bounces, they're looking to be making bearish entries on these hourly lower highs, sticking with the trend. So for VFF, keep an eye on it, because I do believe a more substantial bounce is coming sooner rather than later. T-God on the daily got our red flag yesterday. Talked about how it looked like a bear flag with the lack of follow through. So we dropped down and broke the key support of 475. That was the clear bear break. And as soon as that breaks, we see the pullback of 5% plus. So we now zoom out to the weekly. The daily uptrend is lost with that little lower high and lower low. So we zoom out to the weekly, and we need a weekly new support level to be established compared to 306. But a very significant pullback from the high at this point on T-God. Again, a big runner pulling back over 20%. And on any hourly trend change, anything under 508 is just a lower high. So it definitely goes into the category of weaker Canadian names with where we set up currently. CXXI, bulls bought the dip here. So we have a new support level of 205 established. Hourly end of the day run. And again, this is what they call painting the close, where bulls are intentionally running the price at the end of the day in order to shape how it closes. Look at the bull run yesterday, 10 minutes before the close. Look at the bull run today, 20 minutes before the close. So again, I've been in chat rooms where in penny stocks, people were doing this as teams, painting the close and just saving capital. If you got, $1 million in a position, throwing $10,000 at the end of the day to run the price up and close in your favor is no big deal. So just be aware that you can clearly see that's what's going on here at the end of the day. We see in other tickers as well, but the reason I highlight CXXI more than other names for the cautionary tone on the pump status is just watching social media and Twitter and watching these people play their games in terms of the whole pump. You know, it's just, you've seen it. When you're in this game long enough, you see it so many times, specifically coming from the penny stock world. And it's just like, man, we know what you're doing. Just give it a rest. Anyways, 244 and 243 is a double top on CXXI. The end of the day pump today couldn't break where we topped out last end of the day pump. So the bulls are keeping control. There's someone pumping it. As long as they keep pumping it, bulls are holding on. And 205 is now that new key support on the daily time frame. So that's all our Canadian names here. And we can clearly say that Cron is the weakest name today with that dump. We can say everybody else is weak as well, giving us those red flags yesterday, following through with them today. TRST is the strongest, very clearly, out of all of these names. So it stands out. VFF, we're watching for that bounce due to the significant size of the pullback at this point. But other than that, I mean, CXXI is doing its own thing as well. But everybody else here is losing a lot of bull momentum, and that shift has been underway now for about a week. So let's now look at the U.S. names. For Cura, daily high or low from the all-time high, very clearly established. So from that all-time high to the low, we pulled back a solid 18%, and a very significant bounce from the low of the day today. We bounced 14% from the low to the high. Very nice recovery. So just an hourly break of the lower highs to confirm the hourly trend change. We'll need a higher low and higher high. Daily new clear support, 1107. And we have to be watching. If we can't break 1369, we'll need an hourly higher low and higher high to do so. Most likely, I would assume that we need to breathe a little bit and then try and break that all-time high. But just like that, a nice clear shift in momentum. C-Web, top was clearly set today, breaking, taking out 3 days of progress in 1 day today. But again, a huge bounce from the dip, 7% from the low of the day. And that tells us that there is a lot of money still buying. Look at the hourly chart volume, not very impressive. So an hourly equilibrium is most likely. 27.22 is the high, 24.34 is the low, 26.65 is the lower high, and we're looking for a higher low compared to 24.34. So hourly equilibrium on watch for C-Web, and SPY and everybody else has an hourly equilibrium watch into tomorrow as well, so that makes sense. MedMen, significant dip, filled the gap at 415, and bulls bought that dip. The red flag was the double top at 469, but again, dip buying. If we cannot break 448, it's just an hourly lower high. The difference here, increasing bull volume. That is notable on that bounce. That's a good sign for the bulls, but we have to confirm hourly higher low and higher high to change that trend back in favor of the bulls. TRUL, V-shaped recovery. So the daily chart, higher low is now clearly established at 1676, taking out a couple resistance levels, big bull volume, V-shaped recovery. Again, we need the hourly higher low and higher high to confirm the trend change. Resistance is going to be up at 1785 and then 1840 as the next two nearby levels. So everybody in the US is seeing what the S&P 500 did to a certain degree. Some names stronger than others. So there's SPY's bounce on the hourly. TRUL would have been up here if it were SPY, and other names that are weaker bounces would have been down here. So just varying degrees of the same setup. OH, blue sky breakout. Significant dip buying, V-shaped recovery, close at the high of the day. End of the day push, V-shaped recovery on the hourly. So anything above 1066 will be an hourly high or low. Resistance is 12 psychological. So again, every USMJ name that we just looked at had significant dip buying at the end of the day, which we did not see on the Canadian MJ names. There's just clear differences in how these two geographical regions of the same sector are trading. And it's important to note because it tells us where to be focusing. KHRN, still not proving anything for the bulls. As soon as I saw $4 didn't break this morning, I said, no, bulls don't got it. Had to see follow through from that strong close yesterday, and we did not. We came down and we held the low of yesterday with a little double low, but we've been seeing support hold plenty. We need to see the bulls shift momentum and see buying. Look at this volume dropping off. We need a volume spike and a bull break over $4 to be looking for this potential bull flag on the daily time frame and cup and handle pattern, I should say, playing out. Have to see that volume spike for the bulls and break of $4. Still hanging in there, though. So that's that. Different setups, but never a dull moment. Whether you like to play oversold bounces, whether you like to play bull breaks. I mean, today was definitely a bounce day, but there were plenty of bull breaks in the MJ names on the US side. So I'll be watching VFF tomorrow for another bounce opportunity, as I said. I'll be watching Cron if things get to extreme levels. But if you're looking long term, this is what you want. You want to see Cron consolidate on the monthly time frame. You want to be scaling into weakness. If you have $10,000 you want to put in a long Cron position, you're putting in, I would be looking to put in $1,000, $2,000 at 18, $2,000 at 17, $2,000 at 16, just scaling in to this consolidation, which is so much better in my opinion than chasing on the way up. And that's the case on shorter time frames as well. I mean, everybody that we just saw massive bull runs, Cura specifically, gave another chance for the entry. So, no reason to FOMO in. If you're looking for a long CGC entry, you're hoping we break 41.68, and you're hoping we fall back to $35 for scaling into an entry in the upper to mid 30s, looking for a monthly higher low to form. So there's opportunities for long-term positions. Longer-term consolidation means opportunities for longer-term positions for those looking for longer-term trades. Hope you're well. I'm going to be traveling, going to see the trucking industry ring the bell on futures for the first time, which will be interesting. So I'll try and get videos out, but there's going to be time differences on when I usually get them out, and we'll see. But other than that, have a good day. So now on Adventure Time, we're heading into the very appropriately named Valley of the Gods. I was a mere mortal, feeling like a very small speck in the Valley of the Gods. This is another spot with just a dirt road, BLM land, public land. Go at your own will, camp wherever you want, don't be a jerk. Pretty much the only rules. And there's another area that's similar to this, but it's more developed. They have tours where they take you in jeeps, and it's all tourists and all that. But again, I was here, maybe 3 cars passed me the whole day, but there's no amenities. You don't have water. You got to bring your own water. There's no bathrooms. There's nothing. So you're exposed. It was extremely hot. I put towels in my car windows and just opened them and sweated out for a bunch of hours waiting for dusk before I could really explore. But this place is just massive. And you can see where, the Native Americans treated them as their ancestors. There's so many of these pillars and rock formations look like people. But I loved how the sky was perfect with these clouds passing, because there would be periods like this with, one section completely darked out and others illuminated, and just the way the shadows, you could literally just watch them across the landscape, was really cool. But these monuments, this is what people build in cities and things like that, with monuments and big pillars and all that. But here it is in nature, just from erosion. And this is definitely reminds you of the Wild West old Western movies. Lots filmed in settings like this. There's your dirt road. I think that's my car with the towels in the window. But an awesome place to be by yourself and to camp out. Looks like a row of people standing. All of these pictures are done with a 5-year-old. This was 2013. So a 5-year-old smartphone. I was blown away by what that phone could do in terms of pictures, and can't even imagine now, even way better. So more pillars, more shadows. Finally got to set up my tent. That's one of my favorite ones in terms of getting the sky and the contrast. So with the sky looking like that and the clouds like that, knew it was going to be a good sunset. And then the shadows of these pillars just stretching dozens of miles across the open landscape. There's the tent, corner of the tent. and the sky was great. And the phone definitely did not do this sunset justice. This was almost as epic as the one the phone captured that sunset last one at the Canyonlands really well. But this one was just as crazy, colorful, epic back there, but didn't do as good of a job, probably because it was focusing on this in the foreground there. So that is the Valley of the Gods. And again, definitely want to time it so you're not there in the middle of the day, because I had to sit and sweat for a solid 2-3 hours, but it is worth going to. And again, just a very powerful place. You can tell that there is some mojo going on there, as it was a spiritual place for people for thousands of years. So now we're going to head over to Natural Bridges National Monument. And then I forget where we go from there, but I'll see you soon.